And our first speaker on this topic is Martin Dean of Huawei. Martin is Senior Processor Verification Engineer. Martin previously worked at ARM in Cambridge, predominantly on processor verification, and the lead for Cortex M7. He recently joined Huawei in Bristol to work on the new multithreaded ARMv8 processor.
Thanks, Mike. Morning, everybody. So thanks for the introduction there. That's what I was going to say first, so I don't need to do that now. So, as Mike said, I moved to Huawei in Bristol last November, and I wanted to do a quick introduction first because some of you might not know very much about Huawei. So here's a little corporate slide. Apologies. So you might have kind of be aware of them as a sort of a Chinese company, and that's changing now. There's a lot of expansion going on, and Huawei's changing from being a Chinese company to being more of a global company. So the success has been built on sort of telecommunications equipment. They're the #1 provider in that, and they're also number 3 or 4 in sort of smartphone sales as well. It's a big company. There's about 150,000 employees in total, and about 70,000 of those are in R&D. And there's, as I say, there's now sort of global expansion going on, and as part of that, there's over £1 billion being invested into the UK. And also Huawei have taken an ARM architecture license and are developing ARM-based processors. So there's a couple of design projects going on for that, and one of those relates to the team in Bristol. That's the headquarters in Shenzhen. So we're a new team, completely new from scratch team, starting up in Bristol. There's about 10 of us right now. Started building a team around last September, and we're hoping to grow the team to about sort of 25 people or so by the end of 2015. So what are we actually doing? Building a processor which has a load of technical challenges, difficult verification challenges. So it's completely new. That's hard. It needs to be low power, high performance, obviously, and all of the good stuff that you get in any ARM processor, so coherent memory systems. And the big unique thing for us is that it's going to be multi-threaded. So that's the target market we're going after. So all of those things present, difficult verification problems that we need to solve. We need to decide how we're going to approach that. So that all needs to feed into the verification strategy. How are we going to partition the design? How are we going to set up the checking? What techniques are we going to use, simulation versus formal? And all of this is sort of free from the constraints of a previous project that we're sort of bound by. So if you're kind of doing a derivative, you're always starting from a sort of a previous point, and it's difficult to throw off the shackles of that and do something completely new. So we're in quite a unique position where we can sort of take a look at the whole problem and say, right, okay, how are we going to tackle this? And there's sort of different things that we're looking for, so simplicity, effectiveness, reuse. So new team, different people have had different experience in the past. If we're going to sort of standardize on one way of working, the simpler it is, the easier it is to get people working with that, the better. So a lot of what Nick was talking about with similar debug environments for simulation, form, or whatever, all that's exactly the kind of things that we need to look for. We also need to make sure we pick the right strategies. We can't really afford to try techniques out that then don't prove to be particularly effective. So we need to make sure that however we're doing the verification, we get the best return on investment for that. And also, wherever possible, we don't want to have to sort of develop things from scratch, although it is, starting from nothing. If there are things that we can use that's been developed elsewhere, VIP, then we absolutely need to make use of that. So in terms of that simplicity and the integration that we want to see is a key part of that. So all the tools need to work together as much as possible. So, your bug tracking tool talking to your revision control database and that sort of thing. But also, simulation and regression management. If all of that's kind of encapsulated in one place, then that's going to make things easier for us. We don't have to build the infrastructure for that. So that's something that Nick mentioned. That's something we want to see. But wherever possible, I think we'd like to see open standards, and not being tied into a single EDA company, because if that, we want to use one tool over here and another tool over here and they don't work together, that just means that we have to build all of that infrastructure in the middle ourselves. So open standards, that we're starting to see some advances in that area, UCDB, UCIS for coverage databases, that kind of thing's really good. So final challenge section then is kind of building the team. So we're about 10 people right now in total in Bristol. That's going to grow over the next year. Different people coming on board with different skill sets. We haven't done any projects before. We don't know how it's going to go. There's lots of stuff we don't know probably. Can't claim that we know everything yet. So we're going to learn as we go along, and we're going to sort of have a plan to start with, and it's quite likely that things will change that plan as we go along. But we need to be aware of problems as they come up. We need to, understand what's going on, understand where the problems are, what is working, what isn't working. And as Nick mentioned again, the big data problem, there's all sorts of verification metrics that you can sample, but which are the useful ones? And how do you process them? How do you make sense of all this information and get it to tell you, particularly early on in a project, about how your design is progressing? So it's all very well, in the closure phase of a project, you can look at coverage closure. That's great, but we need to know as early as possible, whether something is going to plan or not. And I think that's somewhere where we need to get more use out of verification metrics early on. Okay.